Freedom and justice should not be contingent on whether you can pay a fucking lawyer. Alright, we're back with another episode of Legally Armed. This time, I'm joined by my wife because it's short notice and I didn't have anyone else to book.
Oh, thanks.
No, I'm just kidding.
You're such a jerk. See if I ever do this again.
Oh, you might have to. So yeah, I wanted to dive into the State of the Union tonight, and I also know that it was promised that we would do a Q&A for some of the people that asked questions on our Instagram post a little while back. So I don't know if you want to start with talking about the decrepit octogenarian trying to talk about the state of this country that's just going to turn into a, it's just become a shithole under him, or if you want to start with the questions.
I think we go State of the Union.
All right. So I will summarize what the State of the Union is, and it's absolute ass right now. That is my summary of the
It's just going to be like a photo of a trash can on fire.
The fact that these people are who run our country. Meanwhile, I have a number of clients that are over 50, 60 years old, maybe, fully experienced, capable, hardworking people that can't get jobs because of their age. I'm like, oh, let me get this straight. So you run corporations and you won't hire someone who's 50 because they're too old, but then you'll vote for a intellectually incompetent and questionably sane 80-something-year-old to run the country.
Yeah.
So he'll get to dictate all of your tax. I mean, let me tell you, who's going to have a bigger impact on your, bottom line? That 50-year-old who has 30 years experience in the industry, or someone who belongs in a nursing home running the White House and affecting your tax policy? I mean, those are the two choices, yet we still have all these liberal CEOs voting for President Biden. Well,
I mean, clearly they're getting what they wanted, right? They wanted an empty vessel, and that's what they got.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, I don't often refer to him as President Biden, but I had to get in the habit of that since I've been in court a lot over the past couple of weeks, hence the delay in our production. And I've had to respect the commander-in-chief in front of these federal judges. I call him Comrade Applesauce, but neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So,
have you seen the signs for president? Anyone under 80?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that we can single out people based on age. I mean, I know some people that are in their 80s that are completely with it.
Yeah.
But the vast majority of them aren't. I mean, look at Feinstein. This woman lost her absolute entire legal capacity to make decisions for herself. But she can make your legal decisions.
Oh, she didn't even know how to vote. They literally had to tell her on the floor to say yes or no.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, and it's also going to start their rant because I'm just absolutely pissed off about a lot of things right now, and it's kind of just like hit a threshold. I don't know. I think that there should probably be a policy that says that if you're going to vote on a bill, you have to fucking read it.
Yeah.
As a starting point, the fact that we have legislators voting on bills that impact our lives that are thousands of pages thick. First off, no bill should be 1,000-some pages thick. The law was supposed to be very straightforward, easy to understand by everyone, and now you need to be a lawyer with a PhD in bullshit to get through everything that they throw at you, because you have to not only understand politics, but law to even read the damn things. But these people are just going in there voting on things that they don't even know what it contains.
Right.
And then they hold you accountable with it. I mean, they put something for like a horse and or a wild burro, like mules program, $115 million. That got slipped into there.
Yeah.
There's another one that gave presidents like $4 million. These were like in one of the prior budgets that was passed. And I was just like, what the hell?
Did you ever see the one that there's a study on the effect of cocaine on like quails or something? It's like an SNL skit, but it's actual reality.
Yeah, I mean, how many times has the Babylon Bee been accurate?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the point. We're to the point where we can't even tell satire anymore. I love seeing accounts that are clearly satirical or posts, and then you go read the comments and people are up in arms. And part of me is like, you're that stupid. You can't pick up on the sarcasm.
No,
but then it's but also to their credit, that's the reality has become satire. So the fact that we are truly believing that these things are real when they're not just shows you how far we've fallen. Like, it's wild.
Yeah, and I mean, I go back and forth because there's certain days where I'm like, okay, I needed a break. I needed some comical humor, something like that. But then I stop and think, I'm like, this isn't really the subject matter that should be humorous. And secondly, it shouldn't be the subject matter that requires me to need a humorous break from the reality that we're living in. And when I look at everything that's going on in Congress and I look at the people that elected these assholes, I am just mind blown because I just cannot for the life of me get to the core problem of how anyone could vote for Biden a second time. And I'm saying second time because people had their heads, buried in the sand. People are disinterested in politics. They don't know much about it. They just believe what they're told. It's very, very, very easy to get fed propaganda and bullshit and buy into it. The problem that I have is when I come to you and I say, hey, look at this. This is what he is doing. I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking him. I'm just putting objective information in front of you. And then you refuse to read it. Like, you need a fucking therapist. Because you have some sort of internal issue going on that you are so afraid that you can't confront reality and actually address the issue of, oh, wow, maybe I was lied to. And if your whole thing about being embarrassed or ashamed about being wrong, no, you look like an infinitely greater jackass by riding that wave till the day you die, because people are just like, what a shallow, shell of a human. Mm-hmm. Like, people that actually have been like, yeah, I got played. Like, I got the vaccine and I didn't realize all these things and I regret doing it. I was wrong. Or people that are like, yeah, I definitely fell for the, getting dosed with the propaganda. Yeah. I've never seen someone attack those people.
Yeah.
Well, the Democrats who are like, oh, I can't.
Right.
How dare you?
Yeah, they will ride that till the very end. It's very hard for people to admit they were wrong. And secondly, it's very hard for people to accept that their government hates them, that all these evil entities exist, because imagine how scary of a reality that is. Like, I honestly am jealous of the people, sometimes I'm jealous of the people that live in this little bubble of thinking that these people have their best interest in mind. Like, it must be a nice existence. So I think it's very hard for people to wrap their mind around it and accept it, because once they accept it, that's a very scary place to live. And I think we've all had that moment where we're like, oh, crap, this is reality.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah.
Because, newsflash, the government has never been there to help.
Right.
Because when you really think about it, like, break it down to the rudimental, like, innate, like, nature of this. All humans are animals. All humans are created equally. All humans on this planet are the same. Yet there's a certain select few humans that are put up on this pedestal, whether it's because of their celebrity status or whether they're politicians or elected and they're vested with some sort of power. They're the ones that are controlling other humans. Yeah. It's a game just like any other animal plays. It transpires across every single facet of society. What do animals fight over? Territory. What do gangs fight over? Territory. What was every war historically fought over? It was either religion or land. What are we doing right now? Fighting over expansion because they don't want borders, and I'll talk about the border crisis later because that's just a whole mess. But the point is, people always want more. They want more land, more power, more money, and they're just going to always fight and do it.
Yeah.
Like, they are not going to just be like, oh, well, you know what? I'll stay off his turf. Why is it that humans stop doing things when other people have guns? Oh, in the 60s, when women were allowed to carry guns in Florida, rapes dropped the following year by 92% after women were permitted to start carrying, firearms. Mm-hmm. Well, why was that? Oh, are you deterred now?
Right. Well, and that's what our founding fathers understood.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, obviously, the power came with, were you born into the right bloodline? And they studied history and saw, how so many societies fell and the reason that they fell, and then they put those safeguards in place, and that's where we're at today is trying to defend those safeguards.
Our founding fathers understood a lot, and I mean, they first and foremost understood that history repeats itself, and they just risked their lives coming to this country. Well, it wasn't even a country yet, but they risked their lives. From the moment they signed the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a document of treason against the British government, and they said, fuck you. And they wrote their names.
Yeah.
first and last, knowing it was a death sentence if they got caught. And that's because, well, they studied history knowing that they had to fight for freedom because it's not free, but they also knew it's only treason if you lose.
Yep.
And because of that, they gained the independence of this country. And the very first thing that they did after gaining our independence was drafting the Constitution, because what it does is it gives Americans the rights that we are entitled to, that we're guaranteed. Well, supposed to be, unless you have a tyrannical government. And secondly, they gave us the tools to fight a tyrannical government that doesn't respect the rights that we have to begin with. Mm-hmm. But nobody knows these rights. Right. Nobody knows these tools. Nobody knows what they can and can't do, because part of it I'm going to put on everyone as individuals, because they don't take up that responsibility to educate themselves on it. And I'm only giving a small portion of that, blame or shifting it in that lens. But the vast majority of it is the government doesn't want you to know what rights you have.
Right.
They don't teach you these things. They don't want you to be educated because they want to control you. The entire system is set up in a way that is to control your money, every single thing that you do. Nothing is free in this world. Right. Why do you think they offer free healthcare? Oh, so then you do what they say or they pull the plug. And what valuable commodity exists beyond that of one's health?
Yeah.
There's nothing more valuable than
free
your health.
Preschool. They want your brain from 2 years old.
So let's start convincing Timmy that he's supposed to sit when he pees starting at 3 years old.
Right.
And then Abraham Lincoln being a Democrat and all these other things. And I mean, the reality of what actually happens in the world versus the artificial construct of what we think is true is so far attenuated, it's not even funny. And this isn't something new. I'm not saying that Biden started this. This shit's been going on since eons, in the 1800s.
Time.
I mean,
well, and a lot of people, we're talking about the founding fathers, what a lot of people forget or don't discuss, or maybe they just don't know, is that our founding fathers did not agree on everything. Far from it. They actually disagreed on so much stuff, but they understood what was at stake when they signed it. And one of my favorite quotes is from Ben Franklin, where he said, we must, what did he say? Once they signed the Declaration, he said, we must hang together, or assuredly we'll hang separately. Meaning, okay, we have to get along. We have to figure this out. We have to unify, or our ass is grass. And that's kind of where we're at in this country today. We have so much infighting with conservatives, and we forget that we are individuals and we're very independent thinkers, and we are going to clash on certain things, but we have to come together on the foundations, or we're going to lose everything.
Yeah. And what separates conservatives and liberals in like the mentality and the personality traits is that liberals are mostly just weak little ants that fall in line and do as they're told. They're yes man, yes sir, no questions asked, blah blah blah. They just follow their marching orders, and they're fucking militant. They listen, they do what they're told. They're like a well-trained dog.
Yep.
And then conservatives, on the other hand, are literally just these wild, untrained, unbroken horses that just want to trot through the fucking field. And if someone says, come here, they go the other way. Nobody wants to fall in any sort of order. And I'm not saying fall in line, because I do think that having that individuality and that leadership quality and not being someone who just, does what other people say and goes against the grain is extremely important. But they need to have this level of discretion where there's certain times that you follow and there's certain times that you lead. Mm-hmm. And there's certain times that you're able to eat when your idea is not at the forefront. Like it's so individualized on the right, because everyone is principled to a fault, or that they just are so virtuous within oneself that they can't actually come together. Yep. Republicans can't come together because we're always worried about our narrative being the winner, as opposed to realizing that if it's the winning narrative on a losing team, we're all fucked.
Right. So it goes to their slogan, vote blue no matter who. And then we can't get behind people because we get hung up on, a couple of their policies, but they could just be saying that as lip service to, like, once they get into office. I mean, we need players in the game.
Yeah, and I mean, we're seeing people that cancel good candidates, or they take up arms because someone either slips up and says one thing wrong, or even if they intentionally say something that someone disagrees with that's fundamentally against what, other beliefs they've previously said, what you personally believe. You're very strongly against this one issue. Now, let me just pull this back out of perspective. Okay, let's say President Trump were to say that he is all of a sudden pro-choice. Okay, let's just say...
Well, there's some people that are pro-life that say that, I think he said it's 6 weeks or something. He made some kind of comment where people were up in arms about it.
Okay, so let me look at this in perspective. We have the options of having a new president elected, which is going to, we don't know who's going to run on the left. I think it's going to probably be, it's either going to be Big Mike or Newsom, or is what I'm feeling.
I don't know. I know that's the theory, but I think they're riding with Biden. We'll see.
I mean, if he makes
Let's make a bet on it.
What's the bet?
I don't know.
We'll figure that out later.
Yeah. That might be not rated.
We'll leave that one out. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. What were we talking about?
We're talking about.
Biden. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's a whiplash of mental thought. Shit. I also never thought I'd think of those two things in the same sentence.
Well, no, we're talking about abortion.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And Trump.
Yeah. So, see, this is my ADD. Yeah. The issue here is, okay, Trump says that. Let's say unequivocally Trump's like, I'm fine with abortion up to 6 weeks. Now, I'm absolutely fundamentally against abortion at any point unequivocally. I think that God creates life and it begins at conception. Now, when I compare and contrast my views and his, they're obviously at odds with one another. However, it's either my view against Trump's view or my view against someone that wants to legalize it once it's halfway out the womb on its birthday.
Right.
So which one is worse? And then those are the only two choices, because I'm not running for president, so I get to choose 6 weeks or 9 months. I'm going to go with 6 weeks here because it's closer to what I actually believe.
Right.
And
people throw the baby out with the bathwater. Oh,
every time.
That was a weird pun for using abortion.
Shit,
I didn't mean, you know what I mean. But then they're opening the door up to someone even worse sliding in.
And that's on a single policy.
Yeah.
And not to mention, not only is that on a single policy, it's on a statement during a campaign. Because what someone says during their campaign, well, yes, it does speak to their character. And I understand that you want transparency and honesty in politicians. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it doesn't matter what happens or what is said on the campaign trail, because what really matters is when they vote. And again, I'm not conflating the president voting and members of Congress or in the Senate. But the point being, if they don't get elected, whatever they say is for shit. It doesn't matter. Their vote is what matters. Their vote in the way that they actually respond when they're presented with an actual bill is the only thing that matters. And if we keep fighting over the fact that people say this or say that and we try to cancel them, it's like, well, why are you trying to cancel him? Why are you trying to convince other people to go against the best shot we have? Nobody's perfect.
Right.
And if you don't like someone's views to the extent that you're going to try to sabotage a campaign on our side, Nikki Haley is not exactly the example I'm talking about here. She's just, I don't even know what she is. She's dumb. I look at her and I feel like I'm just like a mouth breather when she talks. But like, the point being is, stop shooting across left and right. It needs to be forward, because if you're shooting left and right, you might as well just shoot backwards. Like, you're just destroying whatever chances we have of making progress.
Well, anti-progress. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, every single slogan the Democrats use is antithetical to their existence. Yeah. Planned Parenthood kills babies. Media Matters created the fake news narrative.
Well, that's what they have to do.
Build Back Better. The only thing you built back better was the Taliban.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
There's a word
onward.
for that now. I can't remember, but yeah.
It's like antonym. They're not synonymous. It's like, or whatever it is. It's like a reverse metaphor. But everything that they say, because what's the only argument against it? Well, that's not what you are. I am. I'm moving forward. I'm building back better. No, you are. It's like a little kid.
No, they do it on purpose to throw the scent off the trail so that if you attack it, you are then demonized.
Yeah, like Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Are you making that as a statement, or are you talking about Black Lives Matter Network Inc., the company that I got raked across the coals by conservatives and liberals when I said, hey, it's a money laundering front? I mean, BLM should really just mean buy large mansions, because that's all they did with the fucking money. They didn't do a single thing to gentrify communities, yet all of a sudden saying all lives matter is not inclusive. I'm like, do you know the word all? I understand that we struggle here with words and vocabulary and their meanings anymore, considering we don't know what he and she mean, and we created new ones like Zur and Zay and whatever the hell those things are. But point being, if I say all, by definition, that 3-letter word includes black lives, and nobody has said that they don't matter. So stop trying to create divide. But people just fall for whatever they see for as long as it's there, because 3 to 5 seconds after they get into a video, if they're not entertained, they scroll to the next thing. So as long as it's we're literally dumbing ourselves down to the point of stupidity eradicating ourselves.
Yeah, well, maybe at that point we deserve it. I don't know.
I don't. Like, There was a scientist that was posted. I saw Dr. Corey. Pierre Corey is one of the best doctors that have stuck up with, Dr. McCulloch and a lot of others. Well, I'm going to rephrase that. A few, very, very few other doctors that stood up against COVID.
Like a dozen.
He was like, scientific advancement is never going to go anywhere anymore, because he took this. He was a science professor in the UK. He took a couple kids that were in their PhD programs, took them out in the field, and they were looking at whatever they were studying at the time, and they said, "Well, I don't believe it." When he was literally showing them whatever it was some sort of like phenomenon, science shit. I don't know what it is. He's showing them it firsthand, right in front of them, what is happening, and they didn't believe it because it wasn't peer reviewed.
Right.
It wasn't in a paper, so they didn't buy it as accurate. And he's like, kids in college now going bright, educated with extremely high potential for incredible futures, and they come out retarded because they're convinced that if it's not a peer-reviewed, publication, it's false, wrong, or not true, which by definition means we can never advance in science, because in order for an advancement, that means it has to be something new, novel, and unknown to a lot of other people, hence the new advancement. And if it's known by very few or only one person who figured it out, it's not going to be peer-reviewed. And these idiots coming out of school, well, is it peer-reviewed? I don't know. Does your fucking brain work, and do you have eyes? Are you seeing what I'm seeing here, buddy? Because if you look and you process...
the sky is blue.
Yeah,
is that peer-reviewed?
Well, that's ableist. And you're discriminating against the colorblind.
That's true.
Well, what if I see a teal? I'm an individual and I deserve right. It's like, shut the fuck up. Look at the sky. Just look up. As long as there's not a chemtrail, just look up.
Well, don't get me started on that.
And these are clouds. I'm like, when have you seen a cloud like this? Go back and look at your childhood photos. Did you ever see one of those streaky lines that didn't move? What is it, climate change now? You're going to hit me with that bullshit? It's like they have a response. They literally have a narrative of a book that's like a fake life that they just believe. They have an answer to everything, and then when they get to the end where there's like a conundrum and they meet that impasse, they're like, let me get my magic 8 ball. They shake it and like, homophobe.
Oh, yeah.
Racist.
Everything goes back to being racist.
Bigot, you Nazi. They shake it and they just see whatever insult comes up, even if it's not even regarding the same topic. Oh, you're a misogynist. It's yeah, you can't even spell misogynist, buddy, and we're talking about the weather.
Yeah.
So
like drinking coffee is racist. I mean, literally everything comes down to being racist.
It's Mother Earth, so I guess I'm a misogynist for complaining about the sky. It's like, this is like the level of shit that these people go to. And it blows my mind.
Imagine being that offended over everything, though. I think it's going to be like a boomerang effect. And I think we're starting to see it, thank God, because they've gone so unhinged that it's coming back around where even like leftists are like, okay,
they're getting tired of dealing with their own bullshit.
Yeah. Like, are you seriously up in arms and offended over everything? I feel like I'm seeing that change start to happen, where it's like, fine, keep pushing forward, keep being more ridiculous, because it's gonna backfire on you.
Yeah, it's like at some point, aren't you just like, all right, you know what, I've had enough today. Like, I'm just done playing the game. Like, this is stupid.
No, they like it's a whole victim mentality. It's a generation that are just victims.
Yeah, I mean, Tom McDonald has a song where he has a line, and I love it. He said they're so addicted to a victim mentality, they could in being hopeless victims, they could crash a plane and blame the road conditions. And I'm like, that is, it's true. Mm-hmm. It's never
like they're crashing and burning.
Yeah, it's like,
it's gonna be our fault.
Yeah, it's like, no, you're just a pussy. Like, you're just weak. You didn't succeed. You're lazy. You didn't educate yourself. And I get that there are people that have disadvantages, that have hurdles, that have impediments, that have barriers in a lot of different facets of life. But we have currently a black man on the Supreme Court. We currently have people of all ethnicities at the highest levels of every corporate position in America, throughout every level of this, every industry. We've had a black president. If you want to, I mean, my point being is he got to sit there. But the whole narrative of this is that you can do anything that you want in this country at the end of the day. And everyone has their own shit to overcome. Everyone has their own baggage. No one cares about yours. You either grind through it or you don't. And I'm sorry if that's harsh, but either overcome it or stop bitching or figure it out. Mm-hmm. Like, I lost my job during the pandemic. People don't realize that. I got fired twice. during COVID. That's why I started my own law firm. No one has a clue how hard it is to start and operate a law firm. And then I opened up a consulting company. Then I just started a nonprofit. All so I can help people. And I didn't just get handouts. It's not like my dad was a business owner. It's not like I had a path. I literally had to start on Google and say, how to open an LLC. I didn't know anything. And fun fact, just as a side note, most of the time when people ask questions, they could type it into Google and get the answer. The number of things I see people type in comments, I'm like, did you know that works in your internet browser? The same characters and letters you just typed out in a sentence fashion. Totally. You put it in Google, you won't look stupid on the internet.
Right. I'm okay when people ask about like commentary, like what is your opinion on this or your take, whatever.
Things you can't Google.
Right. Or you're a legal expert. So if they have legal questions, like it's for the layperson. For me, that to me is like Spanish. So I totally get when people ask you specific things. But what kills me is people ask something that's literally like a headline, like trending in the news.
Or they're like, who is so-and-so? I'm like,
Google.
Google
I wouldn't want to look. No
and I'm
offense,
saying Google as a verb.
I wouldn't want to look that stupid.
That's my point.
I'm like, when I don't know something, I'm like, Google, okay, I hope no one sees that I had to Google this. Like, I'm not going to publicly shame myself.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm going to just plug again. I'm using Google as a verb, not endorsing the search engine, because there's always going to be that one guy, oh, Google's bad. You don't think I know? Well,
for something as simple as how to start an LLC or...
Yeah,
who won a primary or something, like Google's fine.
I've literally taught classes on it, and frankly, I've done those workshops teaching people how to start their own businesses. From literally the moment that you start that class not knowing a damn thing to the end of that class, you literally go from zero to actually having an LLC that you can take the paperwork in your hand, go to a bank and open a bank account and actually run a business. Like, it's not hard to do, and I can teach people how to do that, but you have to like take it upon yourself to learn. Nobody wants to take that on and actually educate themselves. But speaking of questions, are there any good ones that you have in there?
Oh, okay. So we totally did not talk about the State of the Union, but
I already summarized it. It's a shithole.
We can move on.
That's all I have to say. It's an absolute shithole. He's going to lie to us about inflation, saying the country's great, created jobs by destroying them and then offering them back.
Well, he's dug himself a hole with what's going on, in Gaza and the economy and the border. I saw some stats last night because I rarely watch like MSM. I wasn't watching Fox. I just kind of wanted to see what the other side was saying on
I don't
Super
have the patience
Tuesday.
for that shit.
Just a little bit I wanted to see. And they were pulling up some stats, and he is not faring well when it comes to those issues. So it's going to be interesting to see him squirm.
There's only so many ways that you can twist and lie until it's just like beat to a pulp. Mm-hmm. And eventually the truth, there's no substitute for the truth, and it will always come out. All you can do is delay how long it takes for it to come out. But they are just shooting themselves in the foot. Like it's almost like the more and more you keep pushing it, at some point people are going to call you out on your bullshit, and you just lose all your credibility.
Right. Well, they can only contain the lies for so long, and people are not only opening their eyes. There's a lot of sanctuary cities that are literally living in it, so they can't ignore these policies anymore because it's shutting down their kids' schools so that an illegal can camp in their gymnasium.
Well, I thought all these people wanted these illegals to be here, but I find it strikingly, what a paradox it is that all these people that are championing, we need to let these people into the country. And I'm like, okay, well, you have an extra room.
Oh, yeah.
Why don't you let Pablo and his family stay with you?
Yeah, if you have one of those
signs...
signs...
No. Oh, well, why not? You think that when you say let them into the country...
No human is illegal sign on your front door should automatically open up any space you have in your home.
I thought that you were such a humanitarian and cared about people, so therefore you're championing having them come in and having an open border policy, which along with comes terrorists and fentanyl and, drugs and rapists and human trafficking and sex trafficking and children get kidnapped and killed. I mean... But yeah, humanitarian. We're going to have an open border policy.
That's how they sell everything, though. It's the bleeding heart, the people that, are quote unquote compassionate. They sell them this lie that they're being good humans, and they're really not.
Someone said this, and I only disagree with it slightly. But they're like, if you're a Democrat, if you're not a Democrat when you're under 25, you don't have a heart. And if you're a Democrat and you're over 25, you don't have a brain.
Yep.
I'm like, no, I've always had a heart. I've just also always at the same time had a brain. So therefore I've never been a Democrat. Once you realize, like, you know, the brain part supersedes your emotional triggers, and I want to help. Great. No one gives a shit about what you want to do. If you want to, if you actually want to help, then you would help by not pushing policies that destroy people and their lives and this country.
Right.
So on that note, I want to go back to the questions. I know we said we would do this a while ago, but
Okay. As a lawyer, how can I help the fight pro bono? As in, how can I freelance on the evenings?
oh my goodness, I don't think I've ever had a lawyer offer free help in my life. I thought I was the only one. Send me a DM and say I'm that lawyer, and you know, I will respond to you. Otherwise, you can also email me, whoever asked that. But my point is that with our nonprofit that we just launched, Citizen AG, we're gonna need lawyers that are able to help us out in all 50 states, because it's time that we stop playing defense, and we need lawyers that are willing to start filing suits and go on offense. And you know, it's mind-numbing to me how much money legal nonprofits bring in every year. They bring in over $6 billion every year, the vast majority of which is spent on doing one-off type cases for the for indigent people, and you know, handling their criminal defenses or their divorce proceedings or things like that. And then you have a few, you know, legal nonprofits that do essential work. It's critical work. It's needed, but their focus and their fight is always on getting rights back that we never should have had stripped from us in the first place. So we're spending all this money just trying to get back to level zero. We're just trying to get right back to where we were when we came out of the womb with the rights that we were entitled to, that the government should never take. But then there's no one that ever like fights on top of that once the rights come back. Like, no. Like, you're going to be held accountable for this. You're going to be deterred from doing this again. And we don't have, as soon as you get the rights back, we just say, okay, we win. Right. And I'm not downplaying that it's important, but like, finish the job. Like, if they're still just able to go scot-free and walk away, they're going to do it again. If your dog shits in the house, what do? Do you just pick it up and throw it away and never say anything to the dog? And then you get surprised when it shits on the floor again? Or do you punish the damn dog?
You and your analogies.
I'm serious.
I know. You have the best analogies.
It's just like...
Never ceases to amaze
And then
me.
people are surprised when they come downstairs the next week and there's a fucking turd on the floor. It's like, oh, well, maybe you did. Maybe you should have addressed it.
This might be a personal vendetta, because
yeah, I fucking hate when they shit on the house floor.
My oldest dog is...
God, I hate it with every fiber of my being.
Mine.
And it's just indiscriminate. She'll just look you in the eye and squat and just take a shit. It just does not.
Yeah, that's what they're doing to us.
They're also pugs, so they're A, Chinese, and B, the second.
About the government. They do look us square in the eye, do it, and then they pick it up and like rub it in our face.
Yeah, the government. I'm talking about your Chinese pug bullshit. The dumbest
My
dog.
dogs?
Yes, your commie dogs. Who's
They're so cute.
Oh,
Sorry.
they're not cute. They look like
Okay,
bugs.
don't even get me started on your golden doodle. Okay.
Oh, I'm not going to defend his ass. He is a bad dog, and I regret a lot of decisions that have been made so far with that animal.
Okay.
I love him, but he's an asshole.
Yeah, he is. Okay. The only redeeming quality is that he was named after Tucker Carlson. Beyond that,
he's incredibly smart. He has absolutely no discretion when to use it, though. It's always for something bad.
Yeah.
Opening gates, like remember when he got out of the house and we couldn't even find him, like with the blink cameras, like he opened some door. We know every door in the house was shut, and he's just like in the yard, and we're like, what the hell?
How did you get there? He's Houdini, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. I'll just pick a random one, because there's a lot of folks asking about this, and I also help handle the intakes for the firm, so I know that there's a lot of people looking for help with this. Are folks winning their lawsuits from wrongful deaths from remdesivir? But obviously, wrongful deaths extend further than remdesivir during COVID. So do you want to maybe update people on where you're at with that?
Yeah, so I have 14 cases that were timely filed with something that's called the CICP. It's the Countermeasure Injury Compensation Program. It's like a prerequisite that you have to go through before you can go to court. It's, level 1 you got to beat before you can go to level 2 sort of thing. The issue is that most people didn't know that this even existed. The second issue is that the CICP is supposed to be the entity that pays out, injury claims for people that were, either died or suffered serious bodily injury because of quote unquote countermeasures during the state of emergency. So state of emergency, COVID, countermeasure, anything that was used as like a medical product or intervention. So like ventilators, remdesivir. It could even include failures to give stuff like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. Those people had a mechanism that you're supposed to go through. The first issue, though, is that you only have a year to file a claim with the CICP, and nobody even knew it existed until like 10 months in. It took me over 9 months to piece together the statute to even get to the core of what the CICP was. But I do have 14 clients that have filed and that were timely within the CICP, but they've stalled. It's been over a year. They haven't responded to dozens of letters, dozens of emails. To date, I believe out of the 13,000 something claims that got in time, there have only been 5 claims adjudicated, despite them receiving millions and millions of dollars in federal funding, and they've paid out $1,800. It's like under $2,000, I think, is what they've paid out. So it's essentially just like a money laundering misappropriation front, because they just stall. They're not doing anything. They take U.S. taxpayer dollars, they get it allocated within the federal budget, and then they don't do shit. So we are going to be suing, but these are cases of first impression. There's already 2 cases that have been filed, one by Aaron Seary, who's a great lawyer that's handling one in Louisiana, challenging the fact of the financial angle of it. And then there's another case in D.C. that's challenging the injury side. So I'm waiting and watching those 2 cases, because that's going to ultimately dictate how I litigate these once I file them. But I unequivocally and without any reservation can say I will be filing these lawsuits. I will be filing as many of these lawsuits as I can, and there will be redress for people. And my goal is to blow the entire CICP requirement out of the water, because every single person in this country that lost someone because of this charade, this scam, this mass murder, it just makes me fucking sick to know that people died and lost loved ones, and that could have been utterly and entirely avoided. It just, I can feel my blood pressure rising just talking about it.
Yeah. Again, like when I field some of these intakes, and I mean, sometimes I'm just in tears. It's the stories are incredibly heartbreaking, and I just can't even imagine what people have gone through. Can you also speak to, because we saw some stuff come out where some attorneys apparently thought that this could be a class action, and I know we get a lot of people looking for a class action, so maybe speak to why that it's not possible.
Okay, let me give you 2 examples. Everyone remembers that Boeing 737 MAX airline crash. 200 some people on board tragically died. Is that a class action? No. Now let's look at the Volkswagen emission scandal case, where everyone that bought a Jetta that had like the emissions that were, whatever that bullshit was about. Big payday, so I'm not going to say it's bullshit, but I don't get into the science of the emissions thing. But point being, you bought a Jetta, it had something wrong with it. It was told to you that it was different than it was, and you paid for it. Here, the difference is in the injury. A 6-year-old or 7-year-old child, or a 13-year-old boy, or a 25-year-old, kid in, a PhD program is going to have a different value to their life than a 60-year-old neurosurgeon who owns 2 patents that was also on that plane. They could be seated next to each other. So whenever you have a lawsuit or a legal claim, every single claim requires some level of damage. Damages are always the element. Otherwise, you don't have anything to sue over. So when your damages are different, you don't have the requirements under Rule 23 of federal rules to have a class action. Class actions mean identical, copy, paste, verbatim, zero difference. There's a little leeway with that, but like the injuries have to be identical.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm the layperson, and I know some terminology just from being married to you, but that stuff's very confusing to me. This seems very straightforward. How on earth are there attorneys, sorry, that went to law school, passed the bar, and don't understand that?
Because you don't get taught about class actions unless you take it as an elective.
But can't you just Google that?
One would think.
But, okay.
But a lot of people don't even know. I've talked to so many lawyers that have never heard of the JPML, the Judicial Panel on Multi-District Litigation, and they have no clue what an MDL is, or what they probably heard of like mass tort litigation, but they don't know what mass tort litigation is. So the counterpart to class actions is mass tort litigation. It's essentially where you have a common injury. If you just envision like an hourglass, there's all the top of the hourglass is all 50 states. But it all gets funneled tight into that middle section, that middle column, into one court, because you don't want to have conflicting rulings with the discovery. So like think about that 3M earplugs case. I was one of the lawyers that filed that back years ago, but it just settled to be the largest settlement in U.S. history for over $6 billion for veterans who 3M knowingly sold defective earplugs to the DoD from 2003 to 2015, and they lost their, anything from losing their hearing entirely to in both ears to, tinnitus in one ear to, 50%, 100% ratings. There's a bunch of different arrays between 2 ears and level of injury. How serious was it from a little bit of tinnitus to like full blown deaf? And the way it works is the facts are all the same, right? Like they were injured because of the same conduct, but that all gets funneled into one court with one judge. Because what if you have one judge that admits the piece of evidence, but another judge denies that piece of evidence, and it's going to be so there's just going to always be a dogfight. So they streamline it. That's mass tort. That's what the Boeing case would be. The same thing applies with the vaccine injury cases. However, there's not enough commonality. There were 3 different providers. There's hundreds and hundreds of different administrators, or whatever the word I'm trying to say is, whether you went to pharmacy, whether you were in the military, whether you got it at work, whether you had like a travel nurse, whether you did it at school, like whatever. You
and you're just speaking to vaccines.
Yeah.
And then you get into vents, and then you get into remdesivir.
Then you have different hospitals, you have different protocols.
There's so many variables.
Yeah, there's way too
insane.
Yeah, so they're all one-off cases. That's why you don't have mass organized, for the injuries. People suing over like the death or the injuries is very different than suing them for like the conduct of like committing fraud against the American people, lying to people, falsely advertising a product, knowingly, intentionally interfering with commerce, like all these things.
Well, speaking to that, because there is a question in here, I forget exactly how they stated it, but people want to know, is Fauci going to be held accountable? Or what do you think on that?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure God has something in store for him.
Well, if not in this life, the next for sure. But do you think these people will ever be held accountable?
It depends on what you define as accountable. I mean, the
I think people want jail time.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, our system is corrupt, and there's nothing that makes me more empty inside than when you do everything that you can and fight for someone, and you do absolutely you tirelessly are fighting these massive corporations or the government, and you win. And then when you realize at the end of the day what you did was get everything that was possible under our legal system to get for this person, and all it did was force a company to write a check. It was like giving someone to these companies, it would be like asking them for like a French fry off their plate.
Right.
And that's the most you can do. Like
Right.
I want a justice system where I get to sit down and look the person in the eyes who made the decision to fire these people. I want a justice system where these people are held accountable with real, actual consequences for the decisions that they make, and they don't just get to hide behind their positions in these corporations and this fuzzy bullshit where it's completely unpersonalized, where, this person lost everything. And all I can do is get a check for some sort of, what about their mental health? What about their family? What about their fucking house that they lost? What about every single thing that these people had to go through? The mental torture that you put these people through because of your fucking policies. I hate it. And I hate that that is all that a lawyer can do, but I'm not a magician. And I swear, if I ever, which I will not be running for Congress, if I ever did, this will be at the top of my list, is to revise our justice system, because the damages need to come in some form far beyond cutting a corporate check. Like, it's so hard to sue someone individually that works for a corporation that did something within the scope of their employment, because it's liable against the company. And obviously the individual needs money. That's out of a job for so many years. And the people individually typically don't have the money, or there's multiple people involved. So it's hard to figure out who actually did it. But if every chance that I get, I will go after the person individually that I know that fucked someone over, because that person is responsible. It's not just this corporation. We have these theories. You see cases of John Doe versus X company. Well, X company didn't do shit. X company isn't even a thing. There is another real human,
right, that made
on
that
the
decision.
other side, or a group of them.
And it's not their money.
No.
The monetary damages is not coming out of their pocket. So why do they freaking care? They might lose their job because they're like, damn, you lost us millions of dollars.
They destroy people's lives, and there's things that are very difficult to get compensation for. Well, what about people that dedicate 20, 30 years to a company? I had someone that I just represented in the Second Circuit. I argued on his behalf earlier this week in the Second Circuit, who worked 32 years for the same company, day in, day out. Now, how many people actually know someone who spent 32 years at the same employer anymore? Because I don't.
No, people
5
hop
years
around
sounds
every
like a
2
hell of a
years.
long time to be at one
Yeah.
company anymore.
Yeah.
32 years of his life this man gave to this company. He worked alone. He wasn't near anyone. He worked in IT. There were 3 total workers, and he worked a shift where the other 2 weren't there. And he got fired because he told them that his religious beliefs conflicted with their vaccine policy. And on top of that, they granted his accommodation and then revoked it without reason and fired him. So, oh, sure, we understand. Here's your religious accommodation. Actually, we changed our mind. You're fired. 32 years. And then how is that person going to get justice when they don't have money? They're not employed anymore. It's not like this person was making $1 million a year and no lawyer wants to take their case because they want to get paid hourly. And when they don't have a lawyer that's going to take their case and fight for them, what do? That is not what this fucking country was founded on. So I take the case time and time and time again, and I don't take money from them because I can't, because they don't have it. So who am I going to be the one to say, I can help you, but you have to pay me? Like, freedom and justice should not be contingent on whether you can pay a fucking lawyer. But also on the other side of that, lawyers don't have the ability to just have unlimited hours to go into their own pockets and pay $400 filing fees, $200 service costs, $2,500 for a court reporter to show up at a deposition, $350 to order a transcript from one single court hearing, flights, hotels, travel time. When they have to go to hearings, they have you need to get an Uber, you need to eat. Just to go to a case, just to represent someone, for all the mailings, all the postage, the printer, it's not free. I have gone into my own pocket and spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to help people. And the pockets aren't that deep.
Right.
Because I don't have people paying. It's just drawing from a well where it's getting drips in, which is why I started a nonprofit. Because if other people were able to contribute and share in this and actually help others help each other, I'm willing to do the work. I'm not trying to do it for money. I'm putting freedom over money. But the problem is nobody wants to donate to this. They want to donate to these bullshit organizations that throw parties or that talk about stuff or just pander rhetoric. And I'm not saying all nonprofits are like that. There's a lot of very noble nonprofits out there. I mean, All Things Possible, like Victor Marx has said, there are 45,000 kids. That's a phenomenal nonprofit. There are other ones that Liberty Counsel is another legal nonprofit that's made headway in moving the needle and defending a lot of veterans and stuff like that. There are good nonprofits, and I'm not saying that. But there's a lot of nonprofits that just get money and don't do shit. Meanwhile, I have exponentially moved the ball in this arena. I have fought for veterans. I have fought for our active duty. I have fought for people terminated from Fortune 500 companies. I have fought for healthcare workers, nurses, firefighters, police officers, federal agents. I have represented people in every division of our government alone. And for what? Just to get them back the rights that they're entitled to begin with? There's no money in that. I'm suing just to stop the government from fucking them over.
Well, and let's talk about, the people that don't have the money, but they have an amazing case that is going to set precedent for everyone. So even if people aren't donating because, they want to help that individual, I mean, we're fighting for our country. And if we don't have these safeguards with setting precedent with these cases, I mean, it's so important for people to see the bigger picture.
One case, one person, one set of facts can change the entire landscape on an issue nationwide. People don't realize that. When you're challenging the constitutionality of a law or a statute or a government action saying that it is unconstitutional, all you need is one case to strike it down, or one case to force the government to start doing something that it's not doing. Anybody could have that set of facts fall into their lap. And when I say set of facts, what I'm talking about is that there are certain nuances and distinctions that could trigger either legal defenses or something that just is a barricade that is a snag in like the legal process as to why this tiny little distinction between fact pattern 1 and 2 is outcome determinative. But that fact pattern I've seen dozens of times fall into people's laps. They have perfect cases and they don't have enough money to pay for litigation costs, even if I offer to represent them for free. And I hate it because how do people think that makes me feel? How do you think I feel when I go to bed at night knowing I know exactly where I can find the needle in the haystack, and the needle is all I need to do to break the camel's back, so to speak? I know where it is. I know I can do it. I know how to do it. There's no impediment other than money and time, because I'm one person. I have a duty to my current clients that I'm representing, and I don't have unlimited financial resources, and I'm not going to throw someone into a battle and not have anything more than, it's like, I'm not going to get into a war with one mag.
Yeah.
I mean,
we need ammo.
Yeah, against going up against Fort Knox, who have tanks and every fucking other weapon that they could imagine, because these corporations and governments are unlimited in funding.
Yeah.
They can hire as many lawyers as they want. They can drown you in paperwork. They can litigate the shit out of you. And it's time consuming and it's tedious. How many nights do I stay up all night? I literally don't even sleep.
5 nights a week.
I mean, I sleep during the day. I probably pull three all-nighters a week where I don't sleep.
Yeah.
Every other day.
At least.
Because that's how hard it is to do this.
Well, I know people with heart exist because I know that there's been times where someone couldn't pay the retainer and you've gone to people and you're saying, hey, this person really needs help, and they've paid, their retainer costs.
And you know where all those people have come from and where I've met those people that have donated or charitably contributed on behalf? The church.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, the common thread has been that they have a belief in God and they realize that their purpose here is higher than whatever it is that they can obtain through money or through power on earth. Every single person has donated because of their faith in both the legal system and me, but more importantly, in God, because that's what's compelling them to do it. Nobody wants to give away anything. Nobody wants to just charitably contribute, unless obviously you get the benefit from the tax side of things, but nobody wants to just give away. But if you know that you're going to do so and it's going to make a difference in someone else's life, and I'm fighting like hell to do it, and there's a reason for it, like, newsflash, not every lawyer's rich. Not every lawyer has the ability to just have unlimited funds. People have this preconceived notion that if you're a lawyer, you're super wealthy. And then whatever reason, it's the only industry that people come to asking for help and then get shook when they find out that there's a price tag attached.
Right.
I mean, I can't even imagine going to like a mechanic and they work on my car and like, all right, it's going to be, they tell me, I'm like, oh my God, you're charging me? Like, yeah, no shit. How do you think this facility exists? How do you think that person who's working on your car goes home and eats? They have to live.
Right. It's hard because we're all fighting for survival essentially in this country, and it's like you said, it shouldn't be contingent on if you can pay or not, which is the main motivation. You haven't even said the name, so let's give this a little
Citizen
plug.
AG, because we don't have a real attorney general that's standing up for us. So citizens will become our own enforcers of the law. That's why I came up with the name Citizen AG. And it was incorporated as the 1789 Foundation. And if you're wondering what 1789 means, that's why I have the nonprofit, because the other arm of this is education. That's the year the Constitution was ratified. Most people know 1776. That was our Declaration. 1789 was the Constitution. And Americans need to learn their rights. Americans need to get educated. Americans need to understand what tools and rights they have. Because if they don't, how the hell are you going to exercise them? And your rights don't matter if you're not using them or enforcing them. And then the tools that we have to keep a tyrannical government in check are quite complex and they're pretty effective, but nobody knows them. And as we just saw with Trump a couple days ago, 9-0 in his favor, he can remain on the ballot. Our court system is not perfect, and I will be the first person to say that. But I can tell you, the court system is the only means by which we can prevent ourselves from being subjected to either abject tyranny or some sort of war or violence. And I would prefer to avoid violence, and I absolutely, unequivocally would die fighting to oppose tyranny. Because that is the end of freedom, and freedom is the most important thing other than faith in God that we can have in this lifetime. And if we don't continue using the courts, we're fucked. But they're still working, as broken as they may be. Our courts are still working, as we just saw with Trump. Sure, the path to getting a victory is not as well paved as it used to be, and the roads are a little bit beaten, and there's a lot of potholes. But if you're a good lawyer, you can drive around them and win. And I've done it time and time and time again. I'm at almost $1 million in recovering for my clients on vaccine termination cases alone, including cases where settlements have been against big pharma, settlements in the state of New York against health insurance and health carriers and healthcare providers, Fortune 500 companies, and people said I was crazy. It was not possible. You can't do it. I don't care what people say because I know the law and I know what I'm doing the right thing. And God put me here for a fucking reason. And I'm winning. And if we can do that more and more and more, we can actually overcome what we're facing. But the only way we can do it is by sticking together, stop bitching across the aisle and at each other, and start acting. And that can be anything from coming forward and having the bravery to be a plaintiff, to donating to Citizen AG as a nonprofit, to speaking out if you've remained silent about stuff, and just saying no. Because this never would have happened if Americans in the first place said, fuck this, I am not taking this vaccine, I am not following your bullshit policy. I have so many clients that lost their jobs because they said no, and they are getting rewarded because they did not compromise their faith or belief in God, and they followed what was right when it was hard. And that's why we're all here to begin with. The only reason God put us on this earth is so we can establish that faith and we can refine ourselves. And it's a beautiful gift to be able to have that opportunity. So take advantage of it. Because we only have a short time on earth and you never know when it's up. But we have a purpose. Everyone does. Everyone has a purpose on this planet. And right now, there is no greater purpose than fighting this battle. Because if we do not win this, there's nothing worth fighting for that's left.
Yeah. And think about our kids, the next generation. I mean, what are we leaving? What are we leaving for them?
Yeah. And as a new father and seeing someone that looked like me for the first time in my life since I'm adopted, like, if you're not willing to sacrifice and fight for your own children, you need help. If you're not willing to, I would give everything for that kid. There's nothing. But people are still letting their kids dress up like drag queens and letting them be whoever they want to be because they've been told that's the cool thing. Like, at the bottom of your heart, do you genuinely think that you're helping these people? That you're doing the right thing for your child? The same kid that fucking thinks Santa Claus is real, you're going to say has the capacity to decide whether he wants to mutilate his body or her body permanently for the rest of their life and never get the experience of breastfeeding a child or conceiving children because they had a whatever they do and they chop your dick off? No. You're not helping them. You're mutilating them. You are literally committing arguably what I perceive to be one of the most heinous crimes you can, and you're ruining the chance of normacy, intimacy, love, and a family for that child. All because you were fed some bullshit and you were too weak to say no. So think about it. No one thinks you're cool. And even if they do right now, that shit's going to fade real soon when we see the massive mental health crisis that we already have grow exponentially in the next decade. Because all these kids are going to realize, oh my gosh, what have I done? When you were in middle school, when you were in high school, think of all the stupid shit you did that probably makes you just cringe. Now imagine you can't reverse it and it was permanent and you had to look it in the eye and live it every day the rest of your life, and you didn't even know better at the time because that's what you're doing to these fucking kids. So think about it if you're one of those parents that supports this LGBTQ agenda. It's not about not having compassion for people with different beliefs or views, or not having compassion about people who love someone different than yourself as a heterosexual person. It's about preserving normacy and the sanctity of life and keeping people from making mistakes that they are unequivocally going to regret.
I don't even know if I want to get started down that path because I could be here all day talking about the history of even how we've gotten to this point. with mental health and therapy and the medical system, and how this has gotten to this point is just criminal.
Well, good. Sounds like we have our next topics for the next episode.
Okay, there we go.
So thank you guys for tuning in. Sorry for my rant there at the end. I just got a little pissed off, but appreciate you if you made it this far into the episode. It was a long one. So thank you again. Join us next week, and I'm actually serious. We're going to be talking about those topics. So thank you, Gabby.
Yeah, you're welcome.